So this is the abuse/SA pipeline. The worst part about putting up with this kind of behavior and not leaving is the fact that you will start to gaslight yourself. And when, God forbid, the abuse or the SA eventually does happen, you will either blame yourself that it happened or you will just let it slide as if it's normal. In my opinion, it is obviously best to suss out these types of men early. So let me tell you what is at the beginning or sort of at the top of this pipeline. I've made a whole video about this pyramid before, but I think it always bears repeating that this type of behavior is usually preceded by sexist humor and somebody who generally devalues women. Unfortunately, this is extremely common. These first two things are extremely common among young men. This is how they actually, in fact, bond with each other. A lot of times, young women either don't know that their boyfriend is doing these things behind their back, or they view it as a completely normal, regular, and excusable part of male bonding and friendship. The excuse tends to be, well, they all do this. Like, all men do this, especially all young men do this. It is so much better to never know the mediocre love of a man like this, because typically they're not even men who do these things. They're not dating women for love or fun even. They're dating women to exercise power over them because they don't feel powerful enough in their own right. Because they really believe that that is how they're going to get to the top of the patriarchy hierarchy. And patriarchal men are the biggest danger to women. This is the stage where this young woman unfortunately was at with her boyfriend. And I'm so elated that she refers to him as X in the video. The biggest relief for me. So in her video, she was being approached and touched without consent. And the reason a lot of people, especially young women, will be coached by the patriarchy to sort of poo-poo on consent, and especially these, forms of consent, especially particularly this form of consent, the approaching without consent. I just want to let y'all know that is important. That is important if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage, when you're giving off the impression that you don't want to be approached. Only a person who effing hates your guts will approach you without that consent, or a person that does not care about your well-being, or a person that is not locked in with you emotionally. All of those things are bad. All of those things have already spelled out doom for your relationship, right? It's just that we're, as women, taught to normalize them and let them slide over and over and over again. But these things are not normal. If you are distressed and your partner is approaching you in a way that is not matching your distress, that's a really bad sign. That's a sign that they're not empathetic towards you or empathetic in general. Because men can read this very well on other men. Men don't ignore other men's signs of distress, right? They will not approach other men without consent the same way that they will feel free and open to consent to approaching women without consent. Once again, all of these rules especially apply to the person that you're in a relationship with. And once again, if that person constantly wants to approach and touch you without consent, there is something very wrong. As much as we normalize it as a society by saying, oh, it's just brother behavior, oh, it's just annoying, little boy behavior, oh, he's just pulling your pigtails because he doesn't know how to communicate. This is the pipeline. This is the escalation. And like I said, this probably preceded it. This was probably the guy making that's what she said jokes at parties. This was probably the guy talking about how women belong in the kitchen, right? And we all tend to write these things off as, oh, it's a joke. This is just how men joke. Let's not be too sensitive as women. It's fun to laugh all together. And really, it just opens the door to women are just playthings for men, outlets for men to practice patriarchy on. Before they can really buck up to other men, a lot of men like to practice that on their girlfriend or wife at home, or their child's mother, or their pregnant partner, because the patriarchy tends to make men extremely insecure. And so men who do all of these things, they also tend to be men have either bought into the patriarchy wholesale and they know what it is and they understand that it benefits them and they understand that being abusive and harmful and scary can be used to their advantage and that's what they're doing, or they are men who have been made so insecure and so mentally unstable by the idea that they may not be fitting into the patriarchy as well as they would like, that they are doing these things in order to feel some fraction or semblance of that patriarchal acceptance, because they know that other men would find this type of behavior funny or would look upon it with approving eyes, right? Or would all laugh about it in a group chat behind closed doors. That is what men do. And rather than normalizing it, I really want young women to be able to spot it and run the fuck away. And just to reiterate, the thing that is waiting for you past this point, past the point that I'm showing you in that video that I stitched, is abuse, rape, and femicide. That's why it's extremely important to catch this stuff in its early stages. As men like this, men who do these things, are just testing your boundaries. They are testing how far they can push you before you call what they're doing by its proper name, which is abusive, right? Because anything that can lead up to abuse has to be like abuse light, just a watered down version of the real thing. It is abusive to make sexist jokes about women. It's abusive to devalue women and say that, they need to be in the kitchen or whatever. It's abusive to approach somebody without consent, especially when they're in distress, especially when they do not appear to be giving you consent or wanting to be approached. That's abusive. Like not being able to consider another human being valuable enough to let them make that decision of whether you're going to approach them, especially as a man, especially as some bigger, stronger. Not only was he approaching and touching her without consent, he was also filming it, which is extremely deranged and disturbing. The next step up from that, once again, are these things. And the way that they will happen is will follow almost that exact progression. Sexist humor and devaluing you, when you get upset about that, they will approach and touch you without consent. And then that will escalate into, we should have some sex right now, or it will escalate into you defending yourself and them using that as an excuse to hit you back or defend themselves, knowing damn well that they're going to cause much more damage and knowing damn well that they started it and like instigated it. And a lot of these men will not be afraid to call the police on you as the domestic abuser and perpetrator of violence. As this system, all of this is upheld by the patriarchy. But they know that most of the time, unfortunately, nothing can be done. And they know that this is what you're going to be told at the police station. You're going to be told there needs to be documentation. There needs to be an established pattern. There needs to be like eyewitnesses, all this stuff. Because we don't believe women as a society. Why? Because we make sexist jokes about them and devalue them. And it's like this vicious cycle. And this is just where we're stuck. And then by the time that these men escalate to actually unaliving you, of course everybody's horrified, but they're like, how could we have known? The reason they're asking that question is because all of this, just about all of this, including rape and abuse, has been normalized to the point where we're like, nothing can be done about it. Unless you have these like stacks and mountains of irrefutable evidence that you've collected over the years. Mind you, you would have had to stay and be abused and raped and touched without consent and devalued and all of these things for years before society would believe you. It's an extremely unhelpful system that you really want to just opt out of right here. Any man who belongs to this system and is doing any of these things like they're normal, that's a man who wants to hurt you. Or that's a man that's going to eventually hurt you because women are not valuable to him because he's sexist. That starts right here. Be careful, ladies. Please stay safe out there.